The Unpaid Ledger. Episode 4. Off the Books. Chapter 1. It had been a long week. 2 consultations that went nowhere. A potential client who turned out to be fishing for free advice, and a landlord who'd started making pointed comments about the rent. I was considering calling it a night when someone knocked on my door. Not the tentative knock of a new client. Not the aggressive pound of someone with a grudge. This was precise, professional. 3 knocks, evenly spaced, like the person on the other side had practiced. Eddie looked up from his corner. "You expecting anyone?" "No." "Then don't answer it." I got up and answered it. Miriam Tate stood in my doorway. Same gray suit. Same silver scale pin. Same expression that said she was already 3 steps ahead and waiting for everyone else to catch up. "Mr. Vance." "Auditor Tate." I didn't step aside. "If you're here to ask more questions, my answers haven't changed." "I'm not here to ask questions." "Then what?" She glanced down the hallway, checked behind her. When she looked back at me, something in her expression had shifted. The professional mask had cracked, just a little, showing something underneath. "I'm here to hire you." Eddie materialized beside me, fully visible now, staring at Miriam like she'd grown a second head. "I'm sorry," I said. "I must have misheard. It sounded like you said, 'I need your help, Mr. Vance.'" "Off the record. Off the books." She met my eyes. "May I come in?" Every instinct I had said no. This was the woman who'd been tracking me for months. The woman who'd promised to figure out exactly how abnormal I was. The woman who represented everything that made my life complicated. But she was also standing in my doorway, alone, asking for help. And in my experience, when an auditor came to you instead of coming for you, something had gone very wrong. "Eddie," I said, "get the good chair." I stepped aside and let Miriam Tate into my office. Miriam sat in the client chair, the one that didn't wobble, and folded her hands in her lap. She looked around my office, taking in the water stains on the ceiling, the filing cabinet that didn't close properly, the window that hadn't been cleaned since the Clinton administration. "Charming," she said. "I like to keep expectations low." I sat across from her, desk between us like a negotiating table. "Talk. What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room. That depends on what you tell me." "Fair enough." She took a breath. The crack in her mask widened. "Something's wrong inside the bureau." "That's not exactly news." "This is different." Miriam leaned forward. "I've been tracking irregularities in Ashford for months. You know that. But lately I've found something else. Official placements. Bureau sanctioned, properly filed, approved through all the right channels. That shouldn't exist." "Shouldn't exist how?" "The costs don't match the paperwork. The targets don't make sense. The outcomes are—" She paused, choosing her words. "Convenient. For certain people. Wealthy people. Powerful people. People who can afford to make problems disappear." Her jaw tightened. "Someone inside the Bureau is running dirty jobs through our own infrastructure, using our legitimacy to launder placements that would never pass scrutiny otherwise." I thought about Vincent Cobb, Ray Marsh, the pattern I'd been seeing for months. Adjusters doing dirty work, then ending up dead. "You think this connects to Aldrich?" Miriam's eyes sharpened. "You know that name. It's come up. Then you know more than I do." She sat back. "I've heard whispers. A network. Someone organizing placements that shouldn't be made, cleaning up loose ends, protecting clients who pay enough. But I can't find the center. Every thread I pull leads to a dead end or a dead adjuster. So investigate. That's your job." "I can't." The words came out tight, frustrated. "Whoever's dirty has access to my reports. The moment I flag this through official channels, they'll know. They'll bury it, or they'll bury me." Eddie drifted closer, his expression unreadable. "She's scared." He was right. Under the professional armor, Miriam Tate was afraid. And that scared me more than anything else she'd said. "Let me make sure I understand." I stood up, moved to the window, looked out at the brick wall that passed from my view. "You want me, the guy you've been investigating for months, To help you investigate the Bureau. Your Bureau? Yes. The organization that pays your salary, signs your reports, decides whether people like me get left alone or hauled in for questioning. Yes. And you came to me because? Because you're outside the system. Miriam stood too, joining me at the window like we were both looking for answers in the same brick wall. Because you've been tracking this longer than I have, even if you didn't know what you were tracking. And because, despite my better judgment, I believe you actually care about the balance. I care about getting paid. No, you don't. She almost smiled. You care about people like Nina Santos, Kevin Marsh, the innocents who get caught in the machinery. That's why you do this job, even though it would be easier to walk away. I didn't have a response to that. I'm offering you something valuable, Miriam continued. Access, bureau records, placement logs, things you could never get on your own. Help me find whoever's dirty, and I'll share everything I have. And if I say no, then I walk out of here and try to do this alone, and probably fail, and probably end up like Vincent Cobb. Her voice was steady, but I heard what was underneath. I don't want to end up like Vincent Cobb, Mr. Vance. Eddie appeared between us. Sam, this is a bad idea. He wasn't wrong, but Miriam was offering me the thing I'd been chasing for months, a way into the Aldrich network, a thread I could actually pull. And if there was someone inside the Bureau running interference for the people who'd turned Nina Santos into a dumping ground, who'd killed Maria Vega and let a rich kid walk away clean. I have conditions, I said. Name them. My team is Red N, Derek Wade, April Chin. They're part of this. Wade. Miriam's expression flickered. You're working with Wade now. Problem? History. She shook her head. Fine. Who else? Eddie. I gestured to the space where he stood. My partner. Miriam looked at the empty air. At Eddie, who she couldn't see. The dead man. The dead man. She was quiet for a moment. Then, acceptable. One more thing. I turned to face her. When this is over, whatever we find, you stop investigating me. You close the file. You walk away. Miriam met my eyes, held them. Find me the rod inside the bureau, and I'll owe you more than that. It wasn't a promise, but it was close. All right, Auditor Tate. I held out my hand. Let's go find your dirty cop. She shook it. Her grip was firm, professional, and just a little desperate. Miriam, she said, if we're doing this, call me Miriam. Sam. I let go of her hand. And I hope you know what you're getting into. So do I, Sam. She headed for the door. So do I. Chapter 2. Derek's warehouse wasn't designed for meetings. It was designed for one person to live like they were expecting an attack at any moment. But it had space, it had privacy, and it was the only location everyone could agree on. April arrived first, messenger bag stuffed with her research, practically vibrating with excitement. Bureau records, she said when I let her in. Do you know how long I've wanted to see bureau records? Try to contain yourself. No promises. Derek was already there, of course. It was his place. He stood by the far wall, arms crossed, watching the door like he was waiting for trouble to walk through it. He wasn't wrong. Eddie materialized beside me as we waited. This is going to be fun. Define fun. The kind where everyone's armed and no one trusts anyone. So, a normal Tuesday. The door opened. Miriam stepped inside, alone, carrying a leather satchel that looked heavier than it should. She scanned the room, noted April, noted me, noted the empty space where Eddie stood. Then her eyes found Derek. The temperature dropped about 10 degrees. Wade, Tate. They stared at each other across the warehouse floor. Neither moved. Neither blinked. April leaned toward me. Should I be worried? Probably. Derek broke the silence first. You've got a lot of nerve showing up here. I've got a lot of nerve doing a lot of things lately. Miriam didn't back down. Hello, Derek. You look well. Retirement suits you. It wasn't retirement. No, it wasn't. She set her satchel on Derek's table, claiming space like she had every right to be there. But we're not here to relitigate old history, aren't we? Derek pushed off the wall, moved closer. He was a head taller than Miriam and twice as wide, but she didn't flinch. Because the last time I saw you, you were signing the paperwork that ended my career. You ended your career. I just processed the forms. That's what you tell yourself? That's what happened. Miriam's voice was flat. You made a choice. The Bureau couldn't protect you from the consequences. I did what I could. You did what was easy. The air between them crackled. I stepped forward before someone threw a punch. Hey, whatever this is, table it. We've got work to do. Derek's jaw tightened. He looked at me, then back at Miriam. She's Bureau, Sam. Whatever she's telling you, whatever she's promising, she's Bureau first. Always has been. Always will be. Maybe. Miriam met his glare without wavering. But right now, the Bureau is sick. And if I don't cut out the infection, it's going to spread until there's nothing left worth saving. She turned to me. I'm not asking Derek to trust me. I'm asking him to hate the rot more than he hates me. Derek was quiet for a long moment. Show me what you've got, he finally said. Then I'll decide how much I hate you. It wasn't acceptance, but it was enough to keep us in the same room. Miriam opened her satchel and spread files across Derek's table. Printouts, charts, placement records stamped with bureau seals. The kind of documentation that never saw the light of day outside official channels. 6 months of anomalies, she said. Placements that were approved, filed, and executed through proper bureau protocols. On paper, everything looks clean. But April was already leaning over the files, eyes scanning. But the costs don't match the crimes. The targets don't fit the patterns. And the beneficiaries, Miriam tapped a list of names. The same families keep appearing, wealthy, connected. The kind of people who can afford to make problems disappear. I recognized some of the names. Carver, Whitmore, old money dynasties who'd built empires on foundations that didn't bear close examination. Someone's using the Bureau as a laundry service, I said. Exactly. Dirty placements go in, clean paperwork comes out. The Bureau's seal of approval makes everything legitimate. Who's signing off? That's what I couldn't figure out. The approvals come from different auditors, different departments. No single point of failure. Miriam pulled out another sheet. Until I started looking at who reviews the reviewers. April grabbed the sheet before I could. Her eyes went wide. Calvin Rhodes. You know that name? I found it in Vincent Cobb's records. April was already digging through her own bag, pulling out her research. Cobb had a contact inside the Bureau, someone who told him which placements would pass without scrutiny. I thought it was just a source, but Rhodes isn't a source, Miriam said. He's a senior auditor, 30 years with the Bureau. Impeccable record. Above suspicion. Above suspicion is the best place to hide. Derek spoke for the first time since the truce. His voice was quiet, dangerous. I know Calvin Rhodes. Everyone turned to look at him. He was on my review board when they pushed me out. Derek's expression was carved from stone. He's the one who recommended termination. The room went silent. Well, Eddie said from beside me, this just got personal. He wasn't wrong. Chapter 3. I'd never seen April work with someone else before. She was a solo operator by nature, jealous of her research, protective of her methods. But watching her and Miriam spread files across Derek's table, building connections, filling gaps in each other's knowledge, it was like watching two predators realize they hunted the same prey. Here, April said, pointing at a placement record. 3 years ago, Carver Development needed a zoning violation to disappear. The cost was placed on a city inspector who'd flagged the problem. Inspector died of a heart attack 6 months later. Miriam pulled up another file. Natural causes, according to the report. But look at the approval chain. Rhodes reviewed it. Rhodes reviewed all of them. Miriam stepped back, surveying the web of paper and string they'd constructed. Every dirty placement I've flagged runs through his office at some point. He's not doing the work himself. He's too smart for that. But he's the checkpoint, the quality control. Making sure the machinery runs smooth, I said. Exactly. Eddie drifted through the papers, studying names and dates. He's been doing this for years, maybe decades. How does someone hide that long? By being boring. April tapped Rhodes's personnel file. Look at his record. 30 years of adequate performance reviews. Never exceptional, never problematic. The kind of employee who disappears into the background. The kind nobody looks at twice. Until now. Miriam's jaw was set. But here's the thing. Rhodes is a gatekeeper, not a mastermind. Someone's telling him which placements to approve. Someone's feeding him the client list. Aldrich? I said. Maybe. Or someone between Rhodes and Aldrich, another layer. Miriam shook her head. We need Rhodes to slip. Say something. Lead us up the chain. Then we need to know who we're dealing with. I looked at Derek, who'd been silent since we identified Rhodes. You said you knew him. Derek's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Yeah, he said. I knew him. I found Derek on the loading dock behind the warehouse, staring at nothing. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of rust and gold. You want to tell me about it? No? Going to anyway? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a pack of cigarettes, lit one. I'd never seen him smoke before. 8 years ago, he said, I was a rising star. Good cases, good numbers, good reputation. The bureau loved me. What happened? A placement came across my desk. Routine approval. Wealthy family, messy situation. Needed a cost moved quietly. He took a drag, let the smoke curl into the evening air. The target was a kid, 9 years old, grandson of someone who'd crossed the family decades ago. My stomach tightened. They wanted to place costs on a child? Wanted the family line to suffer. Generational punishment. The kid hadn't done anything. Hadn't even been born when the original offense happened. But he was the last of the bloodline, and someone wanted to make sure the line ended with him. You refused. I refused. Derek flicked ash off the dock. Told them it violated every principle the Bureau was supposed to stand for. Told them I'd report it if they tried to push it through another channel. And Rhodes? Rhodes called me into his office, explained how things really worked, how the Bureau had arrangements with certain clients, how those arrangements kept the lights on and the paperwork flowing, how refusing to play along would be professionally inadvisable. But you still refused. I still refused. Derek finished the cigarette, crushed it under his boot. 2 weeks later, I was under review for irregularities in my case files. A month after that, I was given the choice: resign quietly or face a formal inquiry that would destroy my reputation. So you resigned. So you resigned. He turned to look at me. Rhodes was the one who recommended termination, signed off on it personally, and the whole time, he looked at me like I was the one who'd done something wrong. The kid. What happened to him? Derek's expression hardened. The placement went through. Different auditor, different approval chain. The boy developed a rare autoimmune condition 6 months later. Died before his 11th birthday. I didn't have words for that. So yeah, Derek said. I know Calvin Rhodes, and I know exactly what he is. We found Rhodes the next morning. He lived in a modest house in a modest neighborhood, the kind of place that screamed respectability. White picket fence, well-maintained lawn, nothing that would draw attention. Derek and I parked across the street, watching. That's him, Derek said. Rhodes emerged at 7:15, exactly. Mid-60s, gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a brown suit that probably cost less than my monthly rent and carried a briefcase that had seen better days. He looked like someone's grandfather, someone's accountant, someone you'd pass on the street without a second glance. But I could feel the weight on him from 50 feet away. Books and blood, I muttered. You feel it? Every approval he's signed, every dirty placement he's waved through. It's all there, clinging to him like smoke. I watched Rhodes climb into a sensible sedan. He's carrying years of other people's sins. Does he know? I don't think he cares. We followed at a distance. Rhodes drove to the Bureau's regional office, parked in his assigned spot. walked inside. Everything routine, everything unremarkable. Then, at noon, he left for lunch. But he didn't go to a restaurant. He drove to a parking garage on the east side of downtown, third level. We watched from a distance as another car pulled up beside him. A woman got out. 40s, expensive suit, the kind of confidence that came from money or power or both. She and Rhodes talked for maybe 5 minutes. No handshakes, no paperwork, just a conversation that neither of them wanted witnessed. Then she got back in her car and drove away. You catch the plates? I asked. Already on it. Derek was typing into his phone. We'll have a name within the hour. Another link in the chain. Getting closer. Derek started the car. Question is, how close can we get before someone notices we're pulling threads? Rhodes drove back to the bureau like nothing had happened. Just another lunch break. Just another day. But we'd seen behind the mask, and masks, once cracked, have a way of falling apart. Chapter 4. April had the name within 40 minutes. Victoria Ashworth. She pulled up a photo on her laptop, the same woman we'd seen in the parking garage. Professional headshot, expensive highlights, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. Attorney, runs a boutique firm downtown, specializes in discreet legal solutions for high net worth individuals. Discreet legal solutions, Derek repeated. That's one way to put it. Her client list reads like a who's who of Ashford's old money. Carvers, Whitmores, half a dozen other families we've already flagged. April scrolled through her research. She's not just a lawyer, she's a fixer. When wealthy people have problems that can't be solved through normal channels, they call Victoria Ashworth. Miriam leaned over April's shoulder, studying the screen. She's the intermediary. Clients come to her with problems. She connects them to the network. To Rhodes, I said. To Rhodes, who approves the placements. To adjusters like Cobb and Ray Marsh, who do the actual work. Miriam straightened up. Ashworth is the front door. Rhodes is the quality control. But neither of them is running this operation. They're employees, Eddie said from his corner. Middle management. Which means there's still someone above them. I looked at the photo of Victoria Ashworth, at her practiced smile and cold eyes. Aldrich. Maybe Ashworth knows who Aldrich is. Maybe Rhodes does. April closed the laptop. Either way, they're our best path up the chain. Ashworth's too careful, Derek said. Lawyers like her don't slip. They're trained not to. But Rhodes isn't a lawyer. Miriam's voice was thoughtful. He's a bureaucrat. 30 years of hiding in plain sight. He's never been confronted, never been challenged. You think he'll crack? I think he's never had to find out. She looked at me. We rattle his cage hard enough, he might make a mistake. Say something. Do something. Lead us to whoever's really in charge. We gathered around Derek's table, the files and photos spread out like a war map. We can't go official, Miriam said. The moment I file anything through bureau channels, Rhodes will know. He'll bury the evidence and disappear. So we go unofficial. Derek's voice was flat. Confront him directly, off the record. That's the idea. And if he doesn't cooperate, then we apply pressure until he does. April looked uncomfortable. What kind of pressure are we talking about? The legal kind, I said. Mostly. Mostly? Rhodes has been approving dirty placements for decades. Every one of those leaves a mark, not on paper, but on him. He's carrying the weight of everything he signed off on. I tapped my chest. I can feel it, and I can make him feel it too. Miriam raised an eyebrow. You can weaponize his guilt? I can remind him it exists. Sometimes that's enough. Derek nodded slowly. Rhodes thinks he's untouchable, thinks the system protects him. We show him he's wrong, and he might panic. Panicked people make mistakes. Who makes the approach? April asked. Sam. Miriam's answer was immediate. Rhodes doesn't know him, doesn't know what he can do. I need to stay invisible. If he finds out I'm investigating, my career is over, and so is this case. And me? Derek's voice was carefully neutral. Your backup. Close enough to intervene if things go wrong. Far enough to stay off Rhodes's radar. He knows my face. Then stay out of sight until we need you. Miriam met his eyes. Can you do that? The tension between them crackled, but Derek nodded. I can do that. Good. Miriam turned to me. Tomorrow. Rhodes leaves the office at 6. We intercept him before he gets to his car. And if he doesn't talk, then we improvise. She almost smiled. I'm told you're good at that. Everyone else left to prepare. I stayed behind, sitting on Derek's loading dock, watching the city lights flicker to life. Eddie materialized beside me. This is getting big, he said. I know, Aldrich. The Bureau. Lawyers. Gatekeepers. Networks of dirty money. He shook his head. We started with a kid who inherited a broken watch. Now we're about to poke a hornet's nest that's been building for decades. You think I should walk away? I think you couldn't walk away if you tried. Eddie sat down beside me, his form solid enough to cast a faint shadow in the dock lights. But I also think you should know what you're getting into. Rhodes isn't the end of this. He's barely the beginning. I know. If he reports up the chain, if whoever's running this operation finds out we're pulling threads, we're not just investigators anymore. We're targets. I thought about Vincent Cobb, dead of a convenient heart attack. About Ray Marsh, dead of natural causes that probably weren't natural at all. About everyone who'd gotten too close to this network and ended up in the ground. We're already targets, I said. We just didn't know it yet. That's not comforting. Wasn't meant to be. Eddie was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. I've been dead for 7 years, Sam. Stuck in this gray place because you wouldn't let me go. And in all that time, I've never seen you this close to something that could actually destroy you. You worried about me? Always. He looked at me, and for a moment he seemed almost alive. Just be careful tomorrow. Rhodes might look like someone's grandfather, but he's been feeding innocence to a machine for 30 years. People like that don't go down easy. I'll be careful. Liar. I almost smiled. Yeah, but it's the thought that counts. We sat there in silence, watching the night settle over Ashford. Tomorrow, we'd kick a hornet's nest and see what came flying out. I just hoped we were ready for the sting. Chapter 5. The Bureau's parking garage smelled like concrete and exhaust. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. The kind of place where nothing good happened after dark. I leaned against Calvin Rhodes' sensible sedan and waited. Eddie was somewhere nearby, watching. Derek was in a car on the street, ready to move if things went sideways. Miriam was monitoring from a safe distance, close enough to hear through the earpiece I wore, far enough to maintain deniability. At 6:03, the elevator dinged. Rhodes walked out, briefcase in hand, keys already jingling. He moved with the unhurried pace of a man who'd never been ambushed in his life, never had reason to look over his shoulder. That was about to change. He was 10 feet from his car when he noticed me. Stopped. Frowned. Can I help you? Calvin Rhodes. I didn't move from my spot against his door. Senior auditor. 30 years with the Bureau. Impeccable record. Do I know you? No. But I know you. I smiled. It wasn't friendly. I know about the placements you approve. The ones that don't match the paperwork. The clients whose names keep appearing in files that should never have been filed. Rhodes's expression didn't change, but his hand tightened on his briefcase. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. Victoria Ashworth. The Carvers. The Whitmores. I pushed off the car, took a step closer. The boy who died 8 years ago because you signed off on a placement that targeted a child. That one landed. I saw it in his eyes. A flicker of something that might have been guilt, quickly smothered. Who are you? Someone who's been paying attention. Someone who's been connecting dots. I stopped, close enough to see the sweat starting to bead on his forehead. Someone who wants to know how deep this goes. Rhodes recovered faster than I expected. The mask slid back into place. Bland, professional, unthreatening. I think you've confused me with someone else. I don't think I have. Whatever you believe you know, you're mistaken. He tried to step around me. I didn't move. Now, if you'll excuse me, Derek Wade. Rhodes froze. You remember him. Rising star, good numbers, promising career. Until he refused to approve a dirty placement and you buried him? I watched his face, looking for cracks. The boy's name was Michael Reeves, 9 years old. Died of an autoimmune condition 6 months after the placement you pushed through. That case was handled through proper channels. There was nothing proper about it. You murdered a child with paperwork, Rhodes. You signed his death warrant because someone with money asked you to. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious crime. Rhodes's jaw tightened. For a moment, the mask slipped, and underneath, I saw something cold. Something that had been making these calculations for 30 years. You have no idea what you're dealing with, he said quietly. The Bureau has arrangements, relationships, things that keep the system running. People like you come along every few years, thinking you can expose something, change something. You know what happens to them? They end up like Vincent Cobb? Another flicker. He hadn't expected me to know that name. They disappear, Rhodes continued. Quietly, completely. And the system keeps running because that's what systems do. He leaned closer. Walk away. Forget whatever you think you've learned. Because if you keep pulling this thread, you're going to find out exactly how far some people will go to protect what they've built. Is that a threat? It's advice, free of charge. He smiled, and it was the emptiest thing I'd ever seen. Take it or don't, but don't say you weren't warned. Rhodes tried to push past me again. This time, I let him. But as he reached for his car door, I grabbed his wrist, just a touch, just a second of contact. But in that second, I pushed, not a cost, not a placement, just awareness. I made him feel what he was carrying. Every dirty approval, every innocent target, every death he'd signed off on for 30 years. Rhodes gasped. His keys clattered to the concrete. What? He stumbled back, eyes wide. What did you do? I reminded you. I let go of his wrist. All those placements you approved. All those lives you ruined. You think you're clean because the paperwork is clean, but you're not. It's all still there, Rhodes, clinging to you, weighing you down. You're insane. Maybe, but I'm not the one who's going to die carrying 30 years of other people's sins. I stepped back, giving him room. Last chance. Tell me who's running this operation. Give me a name. I don't know what you're talking about. You meet with Victoria Ashworth. She gives you instructions. Who gives her instructions? Who's at the top of the chain? Rhodes was shaking now. Whatever he'd felt when I touched him, it had rattled something loose. I can't. You don't understand. They'll kill me. They'll kill you anyway, eventually. You're a loose end, just like Cobb, just like all the others. I moved closer. Give me a name, and maybe I can protect you. Stay silent, and you're on your own. He looked at me, at the garage around us, at his car, his briefcase, the normal life he'd built on a foundation of corpses. Then he broke. Ashworth doesn't run anything. She reports to someone, a woman. I've never met her, only heard the name. He swallowed. Bellamy. She calls herself Bellamy. Bellamy. Not Aldrich, but closer. Another link. Thank you, I said. Rhodes grabbed his keys, fumbled his car door open. You're a dead man, he said. You just don't know it yet. He peeled out of the garage like the devil was chasing him. Maybe it was. Did you get that? I said to the empty air. Miriam's voice crackled in my earpiece. Every word. Bellamy. That's new. New is good. New is dangerous. A pause. Get out of there. We need to regroup. I walked out of the garage and into the night. Behind me, the fluorescent lights buzzed on, indifferent to what had just happened beneath them. Bellamy. A name. A thread. We were getting closer. Chapter 6. Derek's warehouse felt smaller with everyone in it. Miriam paced by the window. April had her laptop open, fingers flying across keys. Eddie stood in the corner, watching everything with the quiet attention of someone who'd learned that silence revealed more than questions. Bellamy, Miriam said. I've never heard that name. Not in any bureau file, any investigation, any whisper. Which means she's careful. I dropped into a chair, feeling the exhaustion settle into my bones. Or she's new. She's not new. Derek's voice was flat. He hadn't moved from his spot by the door since we'd arrived. Someone running an operation this size doesn't come out of nowhere. Then she's been hidden, protected. Miriam stopped pacing. Rhodes knew the name but had never met her. That's intentional. Compartmentalization. Everyone knows just enough to do their job, not enough to bring down the whole structure. Smart, Eddie said. Annoying, but smart. April looked up from her laptop. I'm running the name through everything I can access. So far, nothing. No Victoria Bellamy, no Elizabeth Bellamy, no Bellamy associated with any of the families we flagged. It might not be a real name, I said. Could be a title, a code. Or it could be exactly what Rhodes said, a name she calls herself, something separate from whoever she really is. Miriam's jaw tightened, which means we're still chasing shadows. Better shadows than nothing. I leaned back, stared at the ceiling. We have more than we did this morning. A gatekeeper, an intermediary, and now someone above them both. The chain is getting clearer. The chain is getting more dangerous, Miriam said. Rhodes will report what happened. He'll tell Ashworth, and Ashworth will tell Bellamy. By tomorrow morning, they'll know someone's pulling threads. They already knew. We just confirmed it. That's not comforting. Wasn't meant to be. The others drifted away. April to keep researching. Derek to check his perimeter. Eddie to do whatever Eddie did when he needed to think. That left me and Miriam, standing on opposite sides of the warehouse like negotiators who'd forgotten what they were negotiating for. I have to go back, she said. Tomorrow morning. Sit at my desk. File my reports. Pretend I don't know that a man 2 offices down has been running dirty placements for 30 years. Can you do that? I don't have a choice. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I came to you because I couldn't investigate through official channels. Now I'm in so deep that official channels might be the only thing keeping me alive. If Rhodes talks, I'm finished. Career over. Maybe worse. She met my eyes. But I knew that when I walked into your office, I knew what I was risking. Why risk it? Miriam was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. Because I became an auditor to protect the balance, to make sure the system worked the way it was supposed to. And somewhere along the way, I realized the system was broken. She shook her head. I could look away, pretend I didn't see, collect my pension and let someone else deal with the rot. But that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. Even if it destroys you, some things are worth being destroyed for. I thought about that. About all the times I'd taken cases I shouldn't have, helped people I couldn't afford to help, chased threads that led somewhere dark. Yeah, I said. I know the feeling. She almost smiled. I suppose you do. We stood there for a moment, something unspoken passing between us. Not trust, exactly. Not yet. But the beginning of something that might become trust, given time. Be careful, I said. You too. She headed for the door, then paused. Sam, whatever happens next, thank you for taking the risk. Don't thank me yet. We haven't found Bellamy. No. She opened the door, letting in a rush of cold night air. But we will. Then she was gone, walking back into a bureau that might already be hunting her. I found Derek on the loading dock, staring at the city lights like they owed him money. She's going to get herself killed, he said without turning around. Maybe, but it's her choice. Choices get people killed all the time. Doesn't make them smart. I leaned against the railing beside him. You know the name, don't you? Bellamy. Derek was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was distant. I heard it once, 8 years ago, right before everything fell apart. Rhodes mentioned it during our conversation. Said if I had a problem with the way things worked, I could take it up with Bellamy. He shook his head. I thought it was a bluff, a name he made up to sound important. But now you're not so sure. Now I think she's been out there the whole time, running this operation, staying invisible while people like Rhodes and Cobb did the dirty work. He turned to look at me. She's not new, Sam. She's been doing this longer than any of us realized. And if she's smart enough to stay hidden for this long, she's smart enough to know we're coming. Then we'd better find her before she finds us. That's not how this works. Derek's expression was grim. People like Bellamy don't get found. They do the finding. And when they find you, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I drove home through empty streets, the radio crackling with static and half-heard voices. Eddie sat in the passenger seat, solid enough to look almost alive. "We got a name," he said. "We got a name. And we announced ourselves to everyone who wants to keep that name secret. That too. So what's the plan?" I thought about Miriam, walking back into an office full of people who might be watching her. About Derek, carrying 8 years of rage toward a system that had broken him. About April, chasing threads through databases and documents, getting closer to something that might get her killed. "We keep pulling," I said. "We find Bellamy. We find Aldrich. We find whoever's at the top of this chain, and we bring them down. And if they find us first, then we deal with that too." Eddie shook his head. "You make it sound simple. It's not. But it's all we've got." The radio crackled. Static. Silence. Then, just for a moment, something that sounded like a voice saying a single word. "Watching." I turned the radio off. Some messages were better left